Hayato had a strange dream where he was sinking to the bottom of a deep ocean. He heard someone calling out to him, opened his eyes and saw two beautiful girls reaching out to him, as if trying to save him from drowning. But then Hayato cried out, what if they were pulling him down even further? The love these two girls had was higher than the mountains, deeper than the sea, and truly intense. Then he jolted awake, panicking in his bed at 10:30. Hayato struggled to sit up, muttering about what a horrible dream that was. He said good morning to his parents, before he realized his name was Hayato Demoto. Due to some unfortunate events, he is now a student living on his own, responsible for all the housework. It's not that he doesn't have any relatives, but as he glanced at his buzzing phone, he saw messages from his friends. They were saying he still hadn't replied and hoped he hadn't forgotten they were going shopping for the party today. If Hayato was late, his friend would buy him lunch at school. Hayato smiled, cursing his friend under his breath. He had friends, and they got along great. Hayato texted back, asking if his friend was running late and if he was still buying him lunch. Another message popped up that read, "Let the battle begin today." They were going shopping for a Halloween party, and Hayato was really excited. When he arrived, panting, Hayato found his two friends already waiting. One of them yelled that he was so slow. Hayato shot back, telling him to shut up, explaining that he had stopped to help a lost girl, a pregnant woman, and an old man. Sauda Miyanaga, one of his friends, jokingly asked if he had really helped that many people, then advised Hayato that next time, just apologizing for being late would suffice. He declared that he had won this battle and couldn't wait for lunch. Kaito Aijima stood behind him, chuckling. They walked into the Halloween store together, and Sauda exclaimed in amazement that there were so many kinds of costumes for sale. These were Hayato's best friends, and the three of them were preparing for the Halloween party. Kaito pointed to the women's costumes and remarked that they were pretty revealing, as he held up an outfit that barely covered anything. Hayato scoffed, telling Kaito to stop messing around with the girls' costumes and pick one out for himself. Kaito turned back and asked seriously, "What if we invited some girls to the party?" He suggested calling the Shinjo sisters, who were in their class. Both of his friends winced. Hayato imagined the two of them in extremely revealing costumes. The Shinjo sisters were considered the goddesses of their class, famous for being the most beautiful girls in the region. Thinking back, Hayato realized the two girls from his dream looked just like them. Kaito told Hayato that the Shinjo sisters lived in his neighborhood and asked if he could invite them. Hayato immediately shot him down, telling Kaito not to be an idiot. He asked Kaito if he knew that those two hated men. According to the rumors, any guy who confessed to them was dealt with brutally. One of the sisters apparently asked a guy if he'd ever looked in a mirror and told him to please never speak to her again. The other one just nonchalantly said she had zero interest in love, and then asked who he even was. Kaito cried out that it was terrifying for beautiful girls to say things like that, and figured it had to be a joke. Hayato insisted that he'd already told Kaito they wouldn't come, even if he asked. He argued that there was nothing wrong with just having a party between the three of them. They left the store and said their goodbyes, promising to see each other tomorrow. As soon as his friends were out of sight, Hayato saw two girls going into the store with their parents. One of the girls said to look at all the pumpkins, and their parent replied that it was because Halloween was close. He said that their faces were a little scary, but added that pumpkins were delicious. The girls retorted that he was changing the subject. Hayato thought again about how he'd heard that the two girls' father had passed away, and that in a way they were similar. Not that having something in common changed anything, though. He noticed someone had left their front door open, and he wondered who could be so careless at this hour. He checked to see whose house it was, and the nameplate read Shinjo. He stared at the ominous-looking entrance and took a deep breath to steel himself. He thought that if they'd just forgotten to close the door, it would be fine. But he decided to let them know just in case. Hayato stepped inside the house, when suddenly a loud scream made him jump. A man's voice yelled out, screaming that they didn't have any money. He quickly covered his mouth and crept quietly down the small hallway. He stopped at the door and peeked inside. He saw the two sisters wearing almost nothing but their underwear. A man with a knife was holding their mother captive, his hands gripping her greedily. The two girls looked extremely uncomfortable as the man kept leering at them. Hayato realized the horrific situation they were in. He reached into his pocket, thinking he would call the police, but then he realized the man could use the knife before they got there. He grabbed his head and sank to the floor. He knew it was just the three of them, a family without a father, and he cursed, wondering how this could be happening. He realized he had to do something, and fast. Earlier, the sisters had been walking and talking about how exciting it was that Halloween was coming up. The other sister mentioned that things were getting a little chaotic. The younger sister excitedly wondered what they were having for dinner. Then she noticed the open door and called out to her mom, telling her she'd forgotten to close it. The sister stepped inside, with the younger one still telling her mom to be more careful because a bad guy could get in. But then they saw a man with a knife, and their mother tied up and gagged on the floor beside him. He leered at them, and the two girls shuddered in fear. The man quickly grabbed their mother and laughed, declaring that she had 2 daughters. He raised his voice, saying what a shame, and demanded the sisters put their phones on the floor immediately, or he'd kill their mother. Terrified by the threat, the girls threw their phones down, but the man still wasn't satisfied. He ordered them to take off their clothes, saying he couldn't trust that they weren't hiding something underneath. He swung the knife near their mother as a warning. The older sister tried to ask if he would let their mother go if she took off her clothes. He told her that if she followed his instructions, he would consider her request. The older sister slowly removed her coat, while the younger one watched with tears in her eyes. One by one, they set aside their outer garments, the fabric landing silently on the floor. The man stood there observing the situation with a disturbing sense of satisfaction as events unfolded, while he groped the children's mother. He exclaimed that the mother was amazing, while the 2 sisters could only stare at him, shocked by the vulgar words he continued to spew. He mocked that because she had a nice body, he thought she must be living a good life, and that he couldn't believe his luck in getting 3 beautiful women like this. The older sister, with tears welling in her eyes, cried out in outrage why they had to go through this for such a stupid reason. He ordered the one with brown hair to be tied up, while the one with black hair, whose mouth was covered by her mother, tried to speak but was screamed at by the captain. The older sister held out her hands for the younger one, while the younger sister picked up the rope and tied her up, constantly apologizing through her tears. The man threw their mother to the ground and cornered the younger sister. The girl screamed as he pinned her down and held a knife right next to her head. He yelled in her face to shut up and said he would take care of her later. The younger sister cried out, begging him to leave her alone, while the older sister muttered curses, her eyes filled with hatred as she glared at the man. The older sister prayed for someone to come and save them. Outside the room, Hayato was gathering his courage. He muttered that after seeing all this, he had no choice but to step in. He pulled out a metal baton, looked at the pumpkin in his hand, and thought that he at least had to buy enough time for the police to arrive. He bit his lip, determined, and gripped the pumpkin tightly in his hand, thinking to himself that he wouldn't let that bastard do as he pleased anymore. He prayed to his parents to give him strength. Hayato tossed the ball. Hayato appeared from behind the wall, holding a bat and striking the man hard on the head. The older sister stopped crying and looked toward her rescuer. The man screamed that it hurt and asked who he was, muttering curses as he lay on the ground. Hayato, still wearing the pumpkin mask, told him to shut up, saying he had nothing to say to a fool like him. He hit the man again, this time on the chin. The mother cried out her children's names while still tied up. The 2 daughters hugged their mother tightly, tears of joy streaming down their faces. Their mother breathed a sigh of relief and said, "I'm so relieved that you're both okay." Hayato thought that it seemed he'd avoided the worst-case scenario. The man rubbed his chin, and Hayato grabbed him by the collar, warning that he didn't know if this was a robbery or a sexual assault, but this was the end for him. The man gasped when he heard police sirens nearing the house. Hayato flipped him over and tied his hands behind his back, saying that now he wouldn't be able to touch them anymore. The man cursed and told him to stop. Hayato said that if he didn't like it, he would use this bat, and showed him the bat he'd used to hit him earlier. The man immediately apologized. Meanwhile, the mother was reassuring her children that everything was okay now, thanks to the person standing there in the pumpkin mask. One of the girls asked if he had come to help them. Hayato turned around and confirmed, telling them to quickly get dressed. Both sisters looked at him with teary eyes. Seeing their faces, Hayato wondered why they were suddenly crying. Then he realized it was because of his mask. He awkwardly tried to reassure them, saying he promised he wasn't a suspicious person. He took a towel from the sofa and told them to take it, since they might be cold. Hayato wrapped the towel around them and muttered that this would have to do for now. He turned away, realizing his own awkward situation, but just then, the sisters were reminded of their father. Two men entered the house, shouting that they were the police and asking if everyone was okay. They took in the scene and immediately focused on Hayato. One officer said that the guy in the mask was definitely the criminal. Another officer said he looked really suspicious. Hayato told them to wait a minute, but he didn't have to say anything else because the two sisters stepped forward and said that he was the one who had saved them. The skeptical officer demanded that Hayato take off his mask. Hayato tried to explain that it was a bit difficult for him right now. He told them they should talk outside since this was a crime scene. The girl's mother asked for his name and who he was. He turned back and said he couldn't tell them, and that if he revealed his face now, every time they met at school or in the neighborhood, they might be reminded of this incident. If he saw them with pained expressions every time they passed each other, he would be hurt too. The officer said he would have to come with them to the station for questioning. Hayato agreed and walked out the door. The sisters murmured that they didn't even know who had helped them. The police officer said that they had caught the criminal. Hayato took off his mask as soon as he was out the door, seeing neighbors gossiping and wondering what was happening. Before getting in the car, a neighbor wondered aloud if they were targeted because there hadn't been a man in the house since their father passed away. Hayato thought that instead of worrying about who he was, they should take care of their feelings and rest until they were taken to the police station. The police officer yelled, asking Hayato what he was thinking, barging into a crime scene on his own. Hayato bowed deeply and apologized for being reckless, promising to reflect on his actions. He said that if anything had happened to the Shinjos, he would have felt terrible. The officer remarked that luckily no one was seriously injured, but that didn't change the fact that he was still a minor. He said that his parents would worry if something bad happened to him, so he advised Hayato to be careful. The officer stood up and said that was all for now, and that he would show him out. Hayato quickly stood up and thanked the officer before leaving the station. He let out a sigh of relief, as it was his first time at a police station, and he'd been extremely nervous. He looked at the officer, thinking that he had tried to answer honestly during the questioning. Anyway, he was just glad the Shinjo family was safe, and that they hadn't found out his face or name. He thought that accepting their gratitude might be too much for him. Besides the police officer, no one saw his face, so no one thinks he was the one who defeated the robber. He's going to completely sever his connection to what happened, so he won't be talking to them anymore. By the way, the questioning took quite a while, and he wondered if he should buy something to eat at the convenience store. Meanwhile, Ina asked her mother how many more times she was going to check if the door was locked. Her mother replied that this was the last time, and she just wanted to be sure. But Anna protested that they had already checked more than 3 times. She said that everything was fine and suggested that if her mom felt unsafe, they could sleep together. Anna's mother reminded her that there's nothing wrong with being overly cautious. She also said that Anna could take the day off from school tomorrow. Anna thanked her mother but said that they had decided to go with Chan tomorrow. Her mother said that it was her sister's room. Upon seeing her youngest daughter disappear into the room, she asked Arisa if she could sleep here tonight. Arisa asked her sister if something was wrong and said that she looked terrible. Anna lay on the bed and said that this was the very place that man had touched her. She wanted to rip off every part of her body that his filthy hands had touched. Arisa lay down beside her and said that she felt the same way. Men are disgusting and filthy. She asked why they had to go through such unfair things, even when their father was no longer here. She silently screamed in her heart, hoping someone would come and save them. Then suddenly all the sadness vanished, replaced by a radiant smile as she remembered her savior, the one wearing a pumpkin mask. Anna said that when he covered her with the blanket, she knew he was a man from his voice and his build, but she didn't feel disgusted at all. Arisa added that it was for this very reason that she wanted to get back to her normal life as soon as possible so she could find him. Anna agreed, saying she wanted him to know that they were okay. They both said at the same time that they should thank him for saving them. Anna said that she really wanted to see him again. They didn't know his name or his face, but Anna was sure she would recognize his voice and his scent. Anna felt that he was surely not too far from them. Arisa said that she wanted to be with him, and the two of them held hands as they lay back down. Arisa said that he had saved them from a terrible fate, so they would have to serve him for the rest of their lives. Anna asked if she thought he would accept their gratitude. She added that just thinking about it made her feel thrilled. They wished each other good night after their very long conversation. Hayato and his friends were walking to school when Kaido said he'd heard about what happened yesterday and asked if Hayato was okay. Hayato told Kaido not to worry about him. Sauda, on the other hand, said that since Hayato had gone through that, he should have worn his costume and saved the Shinjos like Spider-Man. Hayato mumbled that he couldn't do anything with a plastic stick and a pumpkin mask. Suddenly from behind, the Shinjo sisters appeared, and Anna asked if he had mentioned a pumpkin. Arisa wished him a good morning. Hayato was stunned, hesitantly greeting the Shinjo sisters back while Kaido looked furious. Kaido exclaimed that it was the Shinjo sisters. Hayato remarked that they were coming to school today as usual. Kaido grabbed Hayato and pushed his head down, warning him not to ignore him. He demanded to know when Hayato had gotten so close to those two sisters. Sauda also stared at Hayato, as this was the first time he'd seen two girls greet Hayato. Hayato explained that they are neighbors and that it's normal to greet each other. Kaido pushed him to the ground. Hayato said that they should have stayed home today. Sauda helped him up and said that they were too stubborn. Hayato hoped they weren't overdoing it. Kaido said cheerfully that just seeing their faces this morning was enough for him. Sauda added that somehow he felt like today was going to be a good day. In class, Hayato overheard a few girls talking, one saying that it seemed there was a robbery at the Shinjo's house. The other girl said that the rumor was spreading even in the science lab. In the hallway, they continued to gossip that maybe it was a murderer who had attacked them. Hayato felt that things were getting out of control. He knew that the younger sister, Anna, was in the class next door. He glanced inside as he walked past and saw Anna excitedly chatting with her classmates. She was telling them that she was so scared and had lost all hope until suddenly a savior appeared. Hayato noticed that Anna seemed way too calm. Her classmates asked if he was someone from their school. Anna's face fell as she said she wasn't sure, since they didn't know his name or what he looked like. One classmate joked that it was impossible to find him, while another suggested she should date a guy who could protect her. Anna smiled and leaned towards her friend, saying she would never date a man other than her savior. She said she had these two friends to protect her. She said dramatically that she was falling in love. Her classmates complimented her on being so energetic today and started to doubt if Anna had really been robbed. Another friend said they hoped Anna would find her special someone soon. Hayato stood there silently, thinking that Anna was a girl who knew how to keep herself happy despite the difficulties. He remembered their faces from yesterday and couldn't forget their expressions. His train of thought was interrupted by his classmate shouting for him to come eat. Hayato apologized and said he would be right there as soon as he put his books away. However, Anna still noticed him in the cafeteria. Hayato was about to eat when Kaido started saying that the speed at which rumors spread was incredible. Sauda agreed, saying everyone was talking about what happened to the Shinjo sisters. Hayato took a bite as he heard Kaito say that he didn't think they should talk about it when the sisters might hear. All three of them wondered why the two sisters were sitting here. Both Kaito and Sauda became tense. Hayato noticed the guys were completely stressed out, and even he himself was finding it hard to eat. He noticed Anna was looking at him, but she turned away when Arisa called her name. She had been looking at him so intently. Hayato kept thinking that there was no reason for her to be looking at him. It was just a coincidence that she leaned forward and adjusted her posture. He told himself not to get carried away, and that it was just a coincidence they sat next to each other, not because they thought he was special. He chewed the food in his mouth as Anna said it had been a while since she came to the cafeteria. She remarked that there were so many people here and wondered if that person would come. Arisa also smiled and said she didn't know where that person was. She wanted to express her gratitude to him soon. Anna took a deep breath and said that he was so amazing, so much so that she wanted to have his babies. She laughed when she noticed Hayato getting flustered, causing him to drop his bowl. Both sisters turned to look as Hayato stood up and picked up his tray. Kaido yelled at him not to leave without him, while Sauda cried out for him to wait and said he was coming too. Sauda said that he had lost his appetite and couldn't eat normally with them so close by. Kaido wondered aloud how there could be a man who could make these girls fall for him so hard. Hayato deliberately said that he couldn't imagine such a person. A brave man. He stood up and asked if Arisa could spare him a moment. Arisa turned and told Anna to go back to class without her. Anna simply said she'd see her there. Arisa calmly walked beside the boy. It seemed a challenger had appeared to confess his feelings to a girl who hates men. He must be pretty confident. Hayato ran off without knowing why, but he felt worried for Arisa. He realized he was just being nosy, but he wanted to see what was happening. He went up the stairs and hid behind a door. On the porch, the boy was asking Arisa if she wanted to go out with him. Hayato thought this was definitely a confession, and wondered how Arisa would react. Arisa apologized, saying she already has someone she likes, so she couldn't go out with him. The boy in front of her blushed, and Hayato's jaw dropped in surprise. He couldn't believe there was a man who could make Arisa say something like that. The boy wondered aloud who had spread the rumor that Arisa hated men. Hayato replied that it might have been a strategy to reject them. Someone behind him spoke up, saying he was right. After a moment, Hayato turned around in a panic, realizing he shouldn't be here. Anna put a finger to his lips and told him to be quiet, or they would both be discovered. He quickly shut his mouth, and Anna told him to behave and keep his voice down. She answered his unasked question, saying she was just curious about the confession, and that of course she already knew the outcome. Hayato asked if she really hated men. Anna said that she hates men, but her sister really has given her heart to someone. Then she asked Hayato why he was there. Hayato made up an excuse that he felt bad for the guy confessing to Arisa, especially after everything that had happened to her. He apologized, saying that no matter how worried he was, eavesdropping was much worse. Anna understood and told him he was very kind. Hayato scratched the back of his neck, admitting he was still peeking. Anna countered that she thought he was a good person, and Hayato thanked her. At that moment, they heard the boy say that when he heard about what happened yesterday, he regretted not telling Arisa sooner. Hayato went back to peeking, while Anna watched from behind. The boy boldly declared that from now on, he would protect Arisa and never let her get hurt. Hayato commented that it sounded nice. They heard Arisa say that he can say whatever he wants after the fact. The boy replied that he had a gift for her. Hayato remarked that this handsome guy was persistent. Anna yelled, asking what the boy was planning to give her sister. She wanted to see it, saying he didn't stand a chance. But if he gave her sister something weird, she wouldn't forgive him. Hayato told her to calm down. The boy told Arisa he had written a poem for her, and asked her to come from behind the door to receive it. Anna told him to lean over a bit. He leaned down against the door. She placed her hands on his shoulders and said that was great, she could see better. As she jumped onto his back, he was startled by the feel of her body. She said that now she could see much better. He stammered her name, and she wrapped her arms tightly around his neck, asking what was wrong. She playfully asked if he was thinking about what was pressing against him. In his head, Hayato exclaimed that Anna was way too direct. She laughed and said she actually wanted to talk to Hayato. Hayato hesitantly asked Anna what she wanted to talk to him about while she was clinging to his back. She cried out that if he called her by her last name, she wouldn't know if he was talking to her or her sister. She asked why he couldn't just call her by her first name. He told her to calm down, and this time called her Anna. She tightened her grip on his neck, making it hard for him to breathe, then pouted as she jumped down, saying he just couldn't do it. He shook his head and begged her to stop. She joked that she was just going to watch her sister. Hayato slid down the door, and she tugged at her sweater, telling him to get used to calling her by name. He ducked down to look through the crack in the door and realized she had called him by his first name. Anna said it looked like the confession was about to end. They saw her sister mercilessly rip the poem to shreds. Her sister declared that she didn't like people who forced their feelings on others without considering their emotions. Then her sister turned and walked away. Hayato commented that it was an incredibly cruel thing to do. Arisa seemed quite blunt. Anna remarked that the boy was very persistent and selfish, even though her sister was a kind person. Hayato whispered that the boy was coming, so they should hide. The boy ran out the door in tears, muttering an apology. Suddenly, Anna looked up at Hayato and whispered that they were very close, making Hayato freeze and take a step back. He also apologized loudly. Anna told him not to worry, reminding him that they had been even closer before. He saw an object about to fall on her head, and he lunged in time to save her. He slowly got up and asked if she was hurt, only to realize his hand was placed directly on her chest, and she was looking at him with a serious expression. He realized her chest was very soft, and she smelled really nice. She shuddered as he accidentally put pressure on her while trying to get up. She told him that he was braver than her. He abruptly pulled her up and exclaimed that it wasn't on purpose, it was just an accident. She paused for a moment, then grabbed his hand on her shoulder, cheerfully saying there was no doubt this was the hand that did it, and then she started to laugh. He tensed up as she began to apologize, saying this was so sudden and laughing as if it were all so strange. He looked at his hand that she had grabbed a moment before and wondered what that was all about. She turned around and said she had to get back to class, remarking on how fast time flies. He tried to apologize again, but she turned back and told him not to, with a smile, and said they should talk properly next time. Hayato worriedly wondered if there would even be a next time for him. He looked at her hand, thinking about how he'd pushed her and touched her. She might have smiled, but he thought she was probably upset with him. He ran down the stairs, shouting about what he had done at Shinjo's house. Anna told her sister she was coming in. She entered Arisa's room and, seeing her sister resting her head on her hand, reminded her that it wasn't good for her. Arisa lifted her head and sat up straight at her desk, saying she knew, but she just couldn't stop thinking about him. Anna hugged her sister from behind and said she understood how Arisa felt, but there was no need to sigh like that. Arisa replied that she understood, but she couldn't stop thinking about him. From the moment he saved her, falling for him was inevitable. Anna remarked that no one knows what the future holds, just like they say. Arisa slipped out of her sister's embrace and said that was right, which was why she wanted to see him, thank him, and repay the favor. She said that she wanted to become his slave. She turned as if speaking directly to him, continuing that she wanted to devote her heart, body, and soul to him. Anna took Arisa's hand, saying that their feelings were the same. Arisa spoke up, admitting she'd gone too far, but even with Anna right there, she couldn't stop thinking about him. Anna wondered what their classmates would say if they saw her like this. Arisa grimly told her not to say that, as just remembering what happened today made her feel sick. Anna gently said that it was her fault. Arisa pointed out that boys often confess their feelings to Anna too, but Anna replied that she couldn't stand them even touching her hand. She guessed that things were probably even harder for Anna. Suddenly, Anna stopped and began to tremble. She told Arisa that she was right. Arisa looked at her expression and asked what was wrong. Anna sat up straight and said she felt tired, so she was going to bed. She wished her sister a good night. Arisa agreed, but as if suddenly remembering something, she told Anna she wasn't forcing her to do anything, but she should at least learn the names of the boys in their class. Anna promised she would try. Before closing the door, Anna entered her room and leaned against it. Her whole body was trembling. She placed a hand over her heart as if to calm its frantic beating, wondering what she should do. She had been keeping a secret about him from her sister. Anna started to take off her top. Even though her sister was in the next room, the fever inside her just wouldn't subside. She hugged a pillow and leaned against it, wondering how he would touch her and how he would love her. She brought a hand to her mouth, reminding herself to keep her voice down. She still felt a shiver run down her spine, mumbling that she couldn't take it anymore as she whispered Hayato's name. She imagined him calling her name, telling her to bear his children. She fell onto the bed with a smile on her face, exclaiming how wonderful it was. When she rolled over, she could feel the dampness of the bedsheets. She wondered what it would feel like to be pregnant with Hayato's child. Anna hated men. When she was little, she was once called to her homeroom teacher's office. She had no idea what was happening, and by the time she realized it, she had already become an adult. She looked down at her chest sadly as she heard two boys talking about her. One said that Shinjo's boobs were amazing, wondering what her cup size was. Another said he wanted to touch them just once. A third commented that there must be plenty to massage. Anna almost burst into tears hearing those words. She bitterly wondered why men always had to look at her like that. It made her feel sick to her, as if she would have to deal with men like that for her entire life. But despite that decision, Hayato had managed to break through Anna's resolve to not interact with men. She suddenly peeked out and commented on how beautiful the weather was. Hayato stammered in response that it was indeed nice weather, but asked why she was in the boys' restroom. She playfully replied that this was the easiest place to run into him. She unexpectedly approached Hayato and said that she remembered someone promising to talk to her. She impatiently asked what time and place would be good to talk. Hayato suggested that they should go outside first, then pulled her out, oblivious to the surprised onlookers witnessing the scene. Hayato asked why she thought he'd be in the boys' restroom, and she replied that she couldn't think of any other place that men frequented. Hayato exclaimed that this was all the more reason not to sneak in there. Arisa noticed some people standing around, whispering that Shinjo had just walked out of the boys' restroom, while another person asked what was going on. And that's when she realized her sister and Hayato were standing very close to each other in the crowd. She rushed forward, shouting for everyone to get out of the way. Hayato stopped when he saw her. Arisa called her sister's name and asked why she was surrounded by boys, questioning if something had happened. She glared at Hayato and stood protectively in front of Anna, telling him not to come any closer, and that if anything happened to Anna, she would never forgive him. Hayato cried out that it was just a misunderstanding and that he hadn't done anything. She glared at him and asked, "In that case, were you about to do something?" He broke out in a sweat and tried to explain that it wasn't like that, they were just talking. She asked him who he was to Anna. Meanwhile, Anna had a dreamy look on her face and was silently apologizing to her sister. She thought that with just a little more time, she would have Hayato all to herself. It was her privilege, since she was the one who found him first. She replied suspiciously that they were just friends. Before her sister could give him any more trouble, Anna peeked out from behind Arisa and said they were just chatting. She apologized if she made her sister worry and then suggested they head back to class. Arisa turned around, muttering that she always had to be on guard against men. She kept her eyes on Hayato as she turned away. Anna looked back, promised to see him later, and gave him a wink. Both Hayato and the onlookers were stunned by this display. Arisa looked at her sister angrily for having just called him by his name. She asked Anna if she had just called him by his first name. Anna confirmed it, saying that Arisa herself was the one who told her to learn to call boys by their names. Arisa thought suspiciously that Anna was hiding something. During gym class, after their run, the teacher reminded them not to forget their 15-minute stretching break. Arisa turned to Anna and told her to stretch with her, but she saw Anna heading in a different direction. She ran after her, wondering if Anna hadn't noticed her. She wondered where Anna was running off to during class without saying a word to her. But she had no idea what Anna was thinking. She chased after Anna, thinking that even though something like this had never happened before, she saw Anna lifting Hayato's head as he slept under a tree. She realized there was a man lying in Anna's lap, and the expression on Anna's face made her wonder what was going on. She offered her hand to Hayato and put her finger in his mouth. Then she slid her hand under her own shirt and over her chest. Startled, Hayato jumped out of her lap and exclaimed, "What are you doing?" She asked indignantly why he'd gotten up and asked what he was doing. He rubbed his head and said that since he'd stayed up late, he was looking for a place to rest, thinking it would be fine here, but she found him anyway. Anna replied that it was a woman's intuition. Hayato wondered if it was okay for Anna not to be with her sister. Anna awkwardly asked if he didn't like talking to her. Arisa tensed up hearing this, but Hayato quickly replied that wasn't it at all. There wasn't a boy alive who wouldn't be happy to talk to her. Anna said she just wanted him to be happy after school. As Anna and Arisa stood side by side, Anna muttered that she felt a little tired today, especially since she'd been working all day. Arisa reminded her not to forget to go shopping on the way home. Anna nodded, promising to make it quick so she could take a bath. Arisa suggested that since it had been a while, they should bathe together and use a bath bomb. Kaido suddenly called out that the Shinjo sisters were about to head home. Kaido said that it looked like he saw Hayato talking with Anna in the boys' restroom today. Hayato, standing behind him, froze, feeling anxious about what Anna might be thinking, even though he hadn't spoken to them. Sauda commented that Hayato had completely changed, but Hayato denied it, insisting he still didn't understand a thing about what girls were thinking. Kaido decided they would hear the details at the Halloween party tomorrow and turned away. Hayato was still watching the Shinjo sisters through the classroom window, thinking that his daily routine seemed to have changed a little. Arisa realized that the reason for Anna's change was definitely because of that man. Her intense stare didn't escape Hayato's notice, and Arisa decided that she, her older sister, would save Anna from this misery. Kaito commented that Hayato really looked the part, despite having no skills. He saw Hayato holding a sword in his pumpkin mask. Hayato turned on the light and said the stance he was using was for kendo practice, but it looked terrible in this costume. Kaito remarked that it would be better if Hayato wore a more swordsman-like outfit. This year's Halloween party was held at Sauda's house, with the intention of just dressing up and eating casually. Hayato insisted that he was wrong. They were the only ones who went overboard. Kaito said that since he was a vampire, he could bite a girl's neck anytime. Sauda, on the other hand, cheerfully said that Halloween was the best chance to cosplay. Hayato sighed that going this far just for a party at home wasn't easy. He asked if it was really necessary, because to him, the most important thing was Sauda's mom's cooking, so anything was fine. Home-cooked food was the best, absolutely amazing. Kaito remarked that Hayato was really laying on the praise. Sauda's mother came over and said that Sauda never complimented the food or cleaned up properly. She said there was no need to say unnecessary things. However, she still told Hayato she would give him a big portion just for that. Hayato thought to himself that he would eat as much as he could. Sauda started to say that calling it a big portion was an exaggeration. But before he could finish, his mom lightly smacked him on the head and told him he should be more grateful to his parents. Hayato smiled at the scene as he chewed his food, reminiscing about the old days. He told Sauda not to hold back and to show his gratitude when he could. Sauda was silent for a moment, but then he thanked his mom for always making delicious food. His mother happily accepted his thanks, then suddenly remembered and said that Hayato-kun had been through a dangerous incident recently. She told him if anything was worrying him, he knew he could talk to her any time. Hayato thanked her and said that if needed, he was told he could rely on his grandparents. He couldn't finish his sentence before Sauda lightly hit him on the head with a stick. Kaito told Sauda not to do that, and that he should consult them, his close friends. Sauda added that they were friends, so there was no need to be shy. Hayato laughed looking at them and agreed. Kaito suggested playing Twister after eating. Afterwards, they played all sorts of games and had a great time. Hayato remarked that playing Twister on a full stomach was awful. He walked home with his bag over his shoulder, thinking that time flew by, but he still wanted to do it again. Even though he didn't have a curfew, he didn't feel like hanging out anymore. He remembered in the past he used to break his curfew all the time and would often get scolded by his mom. He recalled knocking on the door in the middle of the night, and his mom angrily shouting as she opened it, saying that he'd finally decided to come home. He apologized, saying he'd lost track of time while playing. His mom scolded him to stop making excuses, asking how many times this had happened. He felt a chill down his spine being scolded, but then his mom pulled him into a hug, while his dad peeked out from behind the door, saying Hayato was finally home. His dad said that when he got older, Hayato's curfew would be extended, but for now he had to promise to follow the rules. Hayato apologized to his mom. Oh? His mom said that if he broke his promise, she would scold him no matter how many times it took. He returned to the present and thought that he had promised to respect his curfew, but felt like this mask was mocking him. He stared at the pumpkin mask he had worn earlier and realized he was surrounded by other kids cosplaying for Halloween. He decided to put on the mask and enjoy Halloween a little more before heading back. He wandered through the festival in his costume. On the other side of town, Anna was saying that the whole town was celebrating Halloween, but she still complained, asking Arisa why they were at a hardware store. Arisa replied that carrying a knife was risky unless they pretended it wasn't for self-defense, and as long as they didn't overdo it. Arisa turned to look at Anna and said seriously that they were here to find a tool to drive away the bad guys. Seeing Anna's confused look, Arisa explained that there were bad people targeting her. She imagined attacking Hayato and tying him up in a sack, thinking he would get to experience what it was really like to deal with Anna. Maybe she should capture him and not let him go until he swore he would never get involved with Anna again. She warned internally that Hayato Dalmoto had better prepare himself. Anna whined that this shopping was getting boring. She took Arisa's hand, but Arisa told her to wait a minute, saying she wasn't done with her preparations yet. Anna said they could do it later since it was Halloween. They walked out of the store together, and Arisa noticed there were a whole lot of pumpkins. She picked one up and looked at it, saying how incredibly lucky it would be if he was one of these pumpkins. She remembered the image of him standing before her, shielding her. Anna remarked that Arisa was thinking about him again. Arisa turned back and suggested they not talk about this anymore. She said they should talk about Hayato Dalmoto. Anna cried out upon hearing that name, and Arisa ground her teeth, saying Anna's reaction told her everything. She declared that Anna was being controlled by Hayato. Anna asked if Arisa had realized that her own heart was the one being controlled by Hayato. Arisa said her sister could see right through everything. She asserted that she would protect Anna from Hayato. Anna asked Arisa if she knew the truth about Hayato. Arisa replied that of course she knew, and insisted she wouldn't let Hayato get near her again. Anna cried out that she knew it wasn't her place, but still said Arisa's possessiveness was just too strong. Arisa declared that it was pure affection. Anna asserted that if it was affection, she wouldn't lose. Fitting her own fingers together as she asked Arisa what she thought of Hayato. Arisa said flatly that he was a filthy scumbag, an unforgivable existence who had tainted Anna. Anna looked at Arisa in shock. Arisa asked innocently if she had said something strange. Anna cried out that of course it was strange because Hayato was the one who... Her sentence was cut off as Hayato suddenly appeared, asking if someone had just called his name. Both girls and a nearby child all stopped to stare at him. Arisa thought they had to be kidding with that outfit. She felt it was unforgettable. She remembered that moment. Anna watched her sister carefully. A child said that it was the Pumpkin Man. Arisa cursed under her breath, deciding it would be best to get out of there fast. Arisa's head spun as she heard Anna say that meeting him in a place like this must be fate. She chased after him, telling him to stop and quit running. She grabbed the sword that fell from his hands, saying he'd dropped something. She called out that she hadn't come here to chase him. Anna saw her sister chasing after the masked Hayato. She realized that her sister didn't recognize him at all. She looked up at the sky, thinking that for a short while she'd had him all to herself. But now that things had come to this, it was inevitable. She leaped in front of him in a flash. Arisa declared that it was a pincer attack and praised Anna for a job well done. She jumped up from behind, trapping him between them. Anna thanked Arisa and told him he couldn't run anymore. Hayato still struggled, saying he didn't know them and asking if they were sure they had the right person. Arisa said there was no mistaking it. He was the one who saved her life. She suggested they move to a place where they could talk. A little while later, they were sitting on a park bench, pressed tightly together with Hayato in the middle, as both girls clung to his sides. He wondered how he was supposed to talk in this situation. Arisa said hesitantly that she'd always wanted to meet him. Hayato thought that even though he'd tried to hide his identity, it had finally come to this. She cried and said that back then, she was truly grateful, and she was so happy to finally be able to thank him. Anna noticed him trembling. He smiled and said he only did what came naturally. Arisa insisted that no, he was the only one who could have done it. She took his hand and said that if he didn't mind, she would love to know his name. Anna placed both hands on his shoulders and leaned in close, while Hayato hesitantly lied that his name was Jack. Arisa burst out laughing while her sister's gaze was filled with adoration for him. She said the name was wonderful and asked if he was a foreigner. He replied that he was from America. She asked what his type of woman was, and he replied that it was someone kind and reliable. She continued asking where he lived, and he lied again, saying he lived in an apartment in Minato City. Anna finally couldn't hold it in, bursting into loud laughter and saying his name. Jack was just too obvious. Arisa stared at her, asking what she meant by that and why she brought up Hayato's name. Arisa insisted that Jack was the complete opposite of Hayato, and that he was the one who had saved her life. She added that Hayato was a scoundrel who had deceived her. She grabbed her own hair and cried out that such a terrible man lived right in their neighborhood, and just thinking about it made her furious. Hayato slowly took off his mask, apologizing to Arisa. Anna immediately threw her arms around him, saying she knew it was Hayato all along. Arisa thought in horror that if Jack was Hayato, then she had just said unforgivable things to the man who saved her. He apologized again for unintentionally making her angry. She thought she could never make up for it, even if it took her whole life. No, even if he forgave her, she could never forgive herself. She trembled as she offered him a sincere apology, saying she was sorry not only for being unable to repay him, but also for saying such horrible things. She admitted she had gone way too far, and begged him to accept her as his slave, allowing her to offer not just her body, but her heart and soul to him. He just sat there, shocked by her declaration. She dreamed that he was the one who saved her from despair, and it was in that very moment that she fell in love with him. She pictured him standing before her, holding his sword and wearing the pumpkin mask, in the exact same outfit as that day. Tears streamed down her face as she thought that whatever he desired she would do, now that everything was clear. Arisa begged him to let her devote her all to Hayato. She kept repeating that she was calling him Mr. Hayato, like a slave, leaving him completely baffled by the situation and wondering what was happening. Suddenly she smiled and said she had prayed for this moment ever since he saved them, so she asked him to treat her as an object and use her as a tool. He cried out that saying things like that so suddenly was really embarrassing. She apologized for embarrassing him, but said she wanted to repay his kindness. Besides, she repeated that he had been a little angry with her a moment ago. Then she did a deep bow, apologizing over and over. He wondered what this was all about. Now she was crying, saying that not only had she addressed him improperly, but she had also insulted him because of a misunderstanding. He realized it was all just a misunderstanding. Anna said this was why her sister was saying such things. Arisa cried, saying she would spend her entire life atoning for it. But Hayato just smiled and calmly told her he had no such request. He added that he even secretly listened to her earlier confession, so he had no right to receive her gratitude. She cried even harder and said that wasn't true. Both she and Anna leaned in closer, leaving no space between them. Arisa continued, saying that at that moment, if he hadn't come, they probably wouldn't be here now. Hayato, instead of paying attention to what she was saying, was struggling, thinking that this was all too much and he couldn't move, unaware of his struggle. She told him that they were friends now, so they should drop the formalities. Anna also called out to him, asking him to not use any honorifics with her either. Hayato thought that with both of them asking him to drop the formalities, he couldn't possibly refuse, since they were practically begging. He blushed and agreed, saying that from now on he'd be in their care. Both Arisa and Anna were staring at him with a strange look. In a weird way, both girls were trembling, and Anna exclaimed that her heart was beating way too fast. Hayato looked from side to side and asked why they were both reacting like that. Anna shook her head, looking down, and said that if she didn't get home soon, she'd get dirty. Arisa agreed, saying she needed to change her clothes. Hayato stood up and suggested that their way home was the same, and wondered if they could walk together. Arisa said that was a given. Anna exclaimed that she knew Hayato would say that. Arisa reminded him that, if possible, she'd prefer he didn't use honorifics, and also wondered if he could drop the polite speech. He turned away but still agreed, saying that he understood. He walked the two girls home, promising to see them again tomorrow at school. While lying in bed, Arisa dazedly mumbled Hayato's name over and over. She wondered how she hadn't realized he lived so close. She cursed herself and hugged herself tightly, murmuring for Hayato to hurry. She wished to be treated like an object and exclaimed that she wanted to live as a tool for him to use for the rest of her life. She pictured herself bound in chains, thinking it was the only way to truly thank him. She imagined him staring down at her while repeating that she wanted to become his slave. She caressed her body, crying out that she would obey him, so please, she begged, give her an order. She cried that just thinking about his eyes, his voice, and his scent made her whole body burn. She apologized for being such a shameful woman. She cried out before finally relaxing, saying that she was looking forward to seeing him tomorrow. Hayato, back at home, dreamed again of the Shinjo sisters, pulling him into the sea. Anna told him to drown in their love, while Arisa kept pushing him deeper. Even in his sleep, his mind was spinning, recalling the dream from that time. He wondered if it was really the Shinjo sisters. On his way to school, he leaned against a wall, feeling like he hadn't rested at all. As he started to walk again, a voice stopped him. He turned around to see the Shinjo sisters standing behind him, wishing him good morning. Arisa almost let a name slip, but quickly corrected herself. Anna suggested they walk to school together. This felt so dreamlike, Hayato had to pinch himself, wondering if he was still dreaming. Anna told him not to worry, as long as they went somewhere that didn't attract attention. Arisa said that he would stand out just by walking with them. Hayato placed a hand on his chest and thought that it was true, but it was just too much for a guy like him so early in the morning. Arisa asked if he had any questions for them, saying she was thinking about how they had asked so many yesterday. Anna suddenly popped up and said that it was fine to ask about their measurements too. He nearly did a spit take, asking Anna why she would say something like that so suddenly. Anna smiled brightly, asking if he wanted to know. Arisa then suddenly asked Hayato with a serious face whether he wanted to know or not. She commanded him to say it. He protested that being asked something like that with such a serious expression was a crime, and quietly pleaded that he wanted to know. Arisa happily replied that her measurements from top to bottom were 88, 57, and 9. Hayato exclaimed when she answered, then suddenly put a finger to her lips as if to silence her, telling her not to give such a thoughtless answer. Arisa said she wouldn't tell anyone but him. She turned her back and mumbled with a smile that, more importantly, she realized he'd gotten a little mad just from her calling him so casually. Anna mumbled that her sister was always like this. Then she turned to Hayato and told him she was older than her sister. He replied dryly that it was too early in the morning for that kind of talk. Anna didn't give up, asking what about in the evening, suggesting they talk at her house tonight. Arisa added that was right, and said their mother wanted to express her gratitude too. Arisa said that unfortunately they had to go now because the school gates were closing. Anna told Hayato to be sure to stop by their house, saying they would make him feel welcome. Then the two sisters turned and left. Hayato awkwardly waved goodbye and mumbled that those two girls were like a storm. The sisters' fierce assault had begun. Hayato rested his head on the desk and Sauda asked him what was wrong, wondering if he even had the energy for lunch. Hayato sat up and said he thought he'd be fine. He knew that those two sisters would take any chance they could to get closer to him. Hayato recalled past experiences of girls sneakily approaching him. He really didn't understand why they were so forward. Kaito seriously asked him how he had gotten so popular with those two. Then he cried out, asking Sauda what the plan was for today. Sauda calmly mumbled that he was in the mood for ramen. Kaito asked anxiously if he didn't want to enjoy his youth, shouting that it had been half a year since they started high school. He wondered if it was really okay to not have a single love story to tell. Kaito asked again if Sauda didn't want a girlfriend. Hayato jumped in, saying it wasn't something you should rush into. Moreover, he said they probably wouldn't be able to hang out and be rowdy like they were at yesterday's party. He added that even though it was just them, he'd never felt lonely since starting school. But Kaito still cried out that he just hoped to have that sweet yet bittersweet school life experience with a girlfriend. Both his friends concluded that, in short, Kaito had found someone he liked. He cried out that he wanted a life full of sweetness and sorrow. However, he declared that he hadn't set his heart on anyone yet. Sauda commented that Kaito was doing things in the wrong order. Kaito argued that imagining the scenarios was important. He told his friend to just imagine the happiness of having someone by your side. Hayato immediately thought of his parents and agreed with Kaito, saying that having someone there for you really is great. Both his friends stared at him. Hayato tried to lighten the mood, saying he'd ruined the atmosphere. He told his friends to just hurry up and get some lunch. Kaito still said that he wished he could go to the cafeteria like this with a girlfriend. Hayato told him that his dream would come true one day. He was sure that another boy would confess to Arisa, but she would simply say she wasn't interested, turning away with a bored expression as Kaito told her she was beautiful, and completely his type. He declared that no woman was more beautiful than her, and begged her for a chance. She repeated that she wasn't interested. He angrily yelled that wasn't a good enough reason to give up. He slammed the door open and stormed off. Arisa asked Anna if she had ever peeked like that when she was being confessed to. She ran over and hugged Anna, saying she had just been complimented on her looks. She said it felt awful, so creepy, and cried that she didn't want to talk to anyone but Hayato, asserting that all of them were trash. Anna said she wanted Hayato to make her feel better, but she had to hold back at school. They walked down the stairs while Anna asked why she'd forgotten to ask for his contact information yesterday. Arisa said it was probably because they had already been asking him so many questions, but Anna just smiled and asked if she wanted Hayato to get to know them. She nodded, saying it would be nice for the distance between them to shrink. Arisa said to leave inviting him to her. Anna immediately got excited, saying she also wanted to tell him her measurements. Arisa suddenly started shaking and collapsed to the ground, wondering if that would be okay and thinking that maybe she should change her clothes. Anna immediately knelt beside her sister, reminding her to calm down. Hayato confirmed that there was no doubt about it. He was suddenly invited by Shinjo. Taito immediately rushed to get the invitation card from his locker, but Hayato swung his arm to block him, saying that old-fashioned way of sending an invitation was just not right, and mumbled that if it weren't for them, he would never go to such a trendy place by himself. Lamai approached and asked if he was alone today. He replied that he was meeting someone. Anna, from her seat with Arisa, who was eating a sundae, called out to him. Both of them were smiling at him. He mumbled that he couldn't just ignore an invitation from two people. Anna laughed and said she was taking advantage of his kindness. She said they should look at the menu first and asked what they should get. He picked up the menu, noticing it was only girls in here, and wondered if he stood out like a sore thumb. The two girls in front of him smiled, as Anna said that Hayato was feeling shy. Arisa mumbled that he was cute. She called the waitress and said she'd have a coffee. Anna looked at him while continuing to say that this shop had very exquisite outfits. She mentioned that she often came here with her friends. Anna said that her older sister loves sweets, which is very different from her. Arisa said that Anna likes spicy food, so it would be dangerous to date Anna. Hayato remarked that it was surprising, since the two of them had completely different tastes. Anna said that since he didn't know much about them, they invited him here today to tell him more about themselves. She began to explain why they hated men. After finishing his drink, he swallowed hard, saying that being touched by a teacher in elementary school was a crime. Arisa figured they used to stand out, and she guessed they still did. Anna said that even when they moved on to middle school, nothing changed. The accumulated experiences made the two sisters grow to hate men. Anna said she never bothered to remember any boy's name, except for Hayato's. Arisa said that when things have gone that far, it's impossible to cast aside a lifelong hatred of men. He exclaimed that even though he was a man, they still said he was different. Arisa explained that when she met him, her world changed. Anna continued and told him they should exchange phone numbers so they could get closer. He asked if that was really okay after a conversation like that. Arisa shouted that she was absolutely sure and demanded he give her his number. After they exchanged numbers, she mumbled that now she had Hayato's number and could contact him anytime. She stood up, saying she just needed to go to the restroom. Anna also had a dreamy look on her face as her sister told her not to stare like that. Arisa quickly closed the door and leaned against it, thinking she shouldn't be acting this way. Meanwhile, Anna asked Hayato that it might be late to ask, but she wanted to know about that incident. Normally, people should just wait quietly for the police to arrive. But why did you come to help us without hesitation? The waitress near the restroom blushed slightly, wondering what that sound was. Hayato replied that normally people would wait quietly for the police, but he imagined what would happen if they didn't arrive in time. His body just moved on its own. He put on the pumpkin mask and ran in. He said he was truly glad she was safe. Hearing this, Anna's whole body trembled, and she clutched her stomach. Hayato asked if she was okay. She replied that she was fine, but she just couldn't hold back in that moment. Arisa came out of the restroom, and Anna said it was her turn. Hayato asked if she was feeling unwell, seeing as Anna kept rubbing her stomach. Arisa told him not to worry about her, saying she'd be fine in the restroom. Anna thought to herself that her body was preparing itself, that it was clearly ready to become pregnant. The waitress blushed again at the sound. Hayato remarked that the restroom had been quite noisy for a while, and wondered what was going on. Arisa asked Hayato if he had decided on a career or had any dreams. He replied that he hadn't decided on anything yet. Arisa said her dream was to help others, that she wanted to be by someone's side for life so she could take care of them. She wanted to belong to that person. She asked Hayato what he thought of this dream. She commented that it was a bit unsettling, wasn't it? Hayato realized that, in other words, she wanted to be a wife. He exclaimed that he thought it was a wonderful dream. She blushed bashfully, then stood up and wondered aloud why Anna hadn't come back yet, asking if she was in trouble again. Hayato stood outside the cafe, thinking they should probably head home. Anna told him to wait a moment, saying she had just received a message. She informed Arisa that their mother had asked them to go shopping on the way home. Arisa trembled upon hearing this, since it meant she couldn't go home with Hayato. Anna comforted her, saying she wanted to go home with him too. Anna hugged Hayato and said it was a shame, but they would have to part ways here. Arisa stepped forward and apologized, telling Anna to let her be a little selfish. She said that Anna had been hogging Hayato all to herself, and now it was her turn to have him.